Alright, guys, welcome to another episode of 5 Minutes with Mike. I am your host, Michael Beckford, and I want to talk about something that, not too many people talk about when it comes down to, things that's going on with the war in Iran and things like that. And it's a very plausible question. Why does mostly rich, non-melanated countries get to tell melanated countries what to do? We'll talk about that question in a minute.
This is 5 Minutes with Mike. Our news, our voice, our issues. Believe that.
I don't like permanent enemies, but sometimes you need enemies to do the job, and you have to do it right. Enemies get you motivated. In fact, some of the closest friends of the United States of America are nations we fought wars against in generations past, and now they're our friends and our allies. I want to make a deal with Iran. If I can make a deal with Iran, I'll be very happy. If we're going to make your region and the world a safer place. But if Iran's leadership rejects this olive branch and continues to attack their neighbors, then we will have no choice but to inflict massive maximum pressure, drive Iranian oil exports to zero like I did before. If you know that, they were a virtually bankrupt country because of what I did. They had no money for terror. They had no money for Hamas or Hezbollah, and take all action required to stop the regime from ever having a nuclear weapon. Iran will never have a nuclear weapon.
All right, guys, welcome back to the episode. Why does rich, primarily non-melanated countries or individuals that's in leadership in that country are primarily non-melanated, get to tell melanated countries what they're supposed to do, what they can and cannot do, what they can and cannot have, how they can trade, who they can trade with, all these particular things, empire. And I know some for the cynics, for the bigots, and others, they may say, oh, well, we're rich, we rule the world. You know what I'm saying? He who has the gold creates the rules. Okay. That sounds, you know what I'm saying? Those sayings sounds pretty great and finite in what it says. And there is some truth to he who, you know what I'm saying, makes the gold, makes the rules, quote unquote, or has the gold, makes the rules, quote unquote. But when's the last time the United States has been backed by gold? When it come down to the US dollar, right? When the last time, if you think about it, that the dollar itself has really been worth anything, especially since it's been on the decline. So you think about it, as far as, let's talk about the United States. The United States right now, as it is, we're back specifically about what's called the petrodollar. There was agreements that was put in place with Middle Eastern countries in regards to the UAE, Saudi Arabia, and those that were in that particular pact, saying that, hey, we got the United States, we got a very powerful military. Everybody knows the United States has a powerful military, although that military is being quite tested right now with the war in Iran. But the United States has a very powerful military, and we got the resources. So, let's exchange dollars for, when it comes down to currency of oil, it'd be exchanged in dollars, So that's one very, very strong leveraging point when it came down to US, the US empire, Now, the U.S. also, produces a lot of oil itself. As of now, a lot of gas, a lot of oil, but we also consume a good bit of oil out of, most major countries, So, so you have, our government is, tentacles are very far-reaching. The United States itself, very, very far-reaching, similar to where Britain was just about 100 years ago. Britain was all over the place. They had colonies all over the place. They were running things, you know what I'm saying? And to a certain degree, Britain still does run things, but their power has kind of, their leverage is not as great as the U.S. is, and definitely not as great as where China is becoming as a superpower in themselves. So the question is, why does
$1 credit once approved for a room near you. Locations and restrictions apply. Hit the link below and get approved for your next room. Now, do you have a vacant home that's been listed on the market forever? Make money from your home today using Padsplit. Earn passive income and make it a Padsplit home today. Link in the description below.
You know, non-melanated nations get to tell melanated nations what to do. You know, you got a country like Iran, right? Who has a country of millions of people. They have a civil society, right? And they have their military. They have their infrastructure. You know, when we grow up from the United States, where we unfortunately we deal with a lot of propaganda that, you know what I'm saying, what the USA, what the USA, what the better, and that's cool. You know what I'm saying? There's nothing wrong with being a patriot for the place from which you are from, you know? This is where I'm from. This is where I live, and most likely probably would be maybe, you know, where I would see my final breath, you know? But in the meantime, it doesn't mean that I have to squander and squash upon someone else when it comes down to the nation that they're from. And that's one of the things that a lot of people don't like about, quote unquote, the Americans. Because when we come into their territories or we visit their particular places, they feel like we have this Yankee kind of attitude, this nose up, like I'm better than, you know what I'm saying? Instead of coming to a place and just being humble, enjoying the sights, doing what you do, you know? So here we are. We got a country like Iran. Millions of people, a population of approximately 96 million people. Very big place. This place is about the size, Iran is about the size of Texas and a half or something like that. Maybe Alaska. But Iran is huge. You know what I'm saying? A huge swath of land. Very mountainous region. You know what I'm saying? They have government. They're not in the Stone Ages, okay? They're not somewhere sitting on some island, you know what I'm saying? You know, living a life like it's 1835. No, like literally they got computers, they got internet, they got all the different things that we have. They have electricity, they got cities, they got all these things, okay? So they have a proper society. Now, are there poor people in Iran? Of course they are, because unfortunately the U.S. government has had sanctimoniously put sanctions on them for the last 40-something years. And some hard sanctions, by the way. But at the end of the result, they still have found a way to, you know what I'm saying, feed their people. Still have found a way to, you know what I'm saying, have some of the best educated individuals, while also some of the best hospitals in the world. You know, yes, that's Iran. Okay. And, you know, here we are. We as a government, and when I say we, meaning the U.S. government itself, has thousands of nuclear weapons, okay? But now Iran is saying, hey, you know what? I may want to make me a nuclear weapon to deter from some of my enemies close by. We all know one of those enemies close by would be Israel, who themselves deny that they have a nuclear weapon, but it's the biggest open secret that they do. But either way, Iran says, hey, you know, I believe that we should be able to get our own nuclear weapon. Why can't we? We are a society of science. We have scientists. You know, we got resources. Why can't we get our own nuclear weapon? You got Russia got a nuclear weapon. You got, you know what I'm saying? All sorts of nations got nukes, you know? The United States and Israel is saying, no, oh no, you can't have one. Because you guys are the largest space sponsor, you know what I'm saying, of you know, unaliving people. No, no, you can't have a nuclear weapon. Like, what? I mean, mind you, at this point, the only nation that's actually used a nuclear weapon, and destroyed a people quite a bit has been the United States, okay? And that was back in Hiroshima, that was back in Japan, right? After Pearl Harbor happened, okay? And so, but anyway, fast forward, Israel and the United States reasoning of saying that Iran can't have a nuclear weapon is because Iran may, you know what I'm saying, decide to use it and violently, you know what I'm saying, and just, you know, get them. Well, you had Iran had to sign this whole agreement, this deal back in Obama's time to say that we won't have nuclear weapons. And then, unfortunately, when Donald Trump got into office after Obama, Trump's first term, he destroyed that particular agreement. And then you wonder why now Iran's like, yeah, listen, first of all, I shouldn't even have to agree to, this BS when it comes down to it. I'm my own sovereign nation. How is it that you now get to try to tell me that I can't have a weapon to protect my people, And as we see with the aspect of countries like North Korea, Pakistan, primarily when you have a nuclear weapon, it acts as a pretty massive deterrent. Like, literally, like, ain't nobody effing with North Korea like that right now. You know what I'm saying? They got a couple nukes in their arsenal. When you know that a country, if Iran had a nuke right about now, we wouldn't have bothered them. I don't think we would have came in like we did. You know what I'm saying? When a person has a nuclear weapon, you practice a little bit more diplomacy than you ever would. You know what I'm saying? And I think, at this point, having a nuke essentially will keep people from effing with you, essentially. Now, am I saying that I believe, personally as an American citizen that Iran should have a nuclear weapon? No, I'm not saying that at all. But I am saying that who are we to tell them what they can and cannot have? If Iran indeed is a sovereign nation, for which they are. You know what I'm saying? Who are we to tell Iran or China who they can and cannot trade with? Right? It makes no sense. And who are we to, quote unquote, put a sanction on a country like we're severely sanctioning Cuba right now? Who are we to just say, oh, no, nobody can trade with this country because I, the supreme leader of empire, said so? I think it's wrong. I think it's antithetical to how we would feel if someone just blanketly say, no, man, you wanna create that new weapon, that move in hypersonic speed that goes into space and then goes drops down. No, you can't do that. We're gonna look at them like, what? We the United States, bro. Don't give a F about what you saying. You know what I'm saying? We're our own sovereign nation. We're America. We're Americans. I'm a patriot. Exactly. So I just think that it's a grave hypocrisy when you have these majority non-melanated countries and or nations that are telling mostly brown and melanated nations and black nations, hey, you can't do this, you can't do that. And we're all up in their business. Look at Africa. Africa is the pillar of colonialism, whether has been by the United States, France, Great Britain, and now China. African has been great of its resources for so long, whether it's the biggest resource, which is the people, or the resource of the land for which the gold and silver and everything else sits and pearls sits itself, and now the resources that make cell phones. You know what I'm saying? Africa has been that nation that's been plundered. And a lot of it too is nations saying, no, you can't do this. Oh, we're going to bomb your behind. Look at what happened in Nigeria. Recently when it was supposedly Nigerians unaliving Christians, this whole thing that was out. The United States dropped a weapon, dropped a bomb over in Nigeria, And so, listen, this grave hypocrisy to me just cannot exist for long. Because at the end of the day, not only does it cause traumatic stress on a group of people that you're severely sanctioning, but also who are you to tell another country or nation state what they can or cannot do? All right, guys, this is the episode. Please like, subscribe, comment, and let me know what you're thinking. Have a blessed day.